Let me tell you something that most people never admit out loud. Some children never really got the chance to be children. They learned to stay quiet when others argued. They learned to take care of people older than them. They learned that crying didn't fix things. It only made them seem weaker in a world that demanded strength long before they were ready to understand what that word even meant. If you've ever felt like you were forced to grow up too fast, you know this story already. It's written into the way you apologize too much, the way you overthink before speaking, the way you find yourself caring more about others' comfort than your own peace. You may not remember exactly when it started, only that one day you were laughing without worry, and the next you were carrying a weight no one could see. For some kids, childhood ends the moment they realize no one is coming to fix things. That's the moment they become their own parent, their own protector, their own emotional anchor. It's subtle at first, helping a parent calm down, comforting a sibling, solving problems adults should have handled. But over time, it becomes identity. It becomes survival. And survival has a strange way of disguising itself as maturity. People tell you you're so responsible for your age. They call you strong, independent, wise beyond your years. But what they don't see is that those traits weren't choices. They were coping mechanisms. Every compliment hides a quiet ache. The longing to be carefree, to be silly, to be held instead of holding everything together. When you grow up too fast, you learn to scan every room for danger, emotional danger, conflict, disapproval. You become hyper-aware of people's tones, their moods, their silences. You learn that peace is fragile and that your job is to maintain it. You become the fixer, the mediator, the emotional sponge. You soak up everyone's pain and rarely let your own show. And over time, that becomes exhausting. You begin to confuse calm with safety, silence with love, and control with worth. Because as a child, control was the only thing that made you feel safe. You couldn't control your environment, so you tried to control yourself. Your words, your emotions, your needs. You became small, quiet, agreeable. Not because you wanted to be, but because it felt like the only way to survive. You grew up watching others fall apart, and no one showed you that it was okay to fall apart too. So you learned to hold yourself together no matter what. You learned to smile when things hurt. You learned to say, "I'm fine," when you weren't. And even now, as an adult, that pattern follows you. You might find it hard to relax around others. You might over-explain, over-apologize, over-perform. You might find it almost impossible to rest because rest feels unsafe. Stillness feels suspicious. Your nervous system never learned the difference between calm and danger. It learned that quiet moments are just the pause before something breaks again. And so you live on alert even when nothing's wrong. That's what happens when you grow up too fast. Your body never learns that the storm is over. You might find yourself drawn to people who need saving. It feels familiar. That sense of being useful, being needed. It makes you feel like you have purpose. But deep down, it's also how you repeat your childhood story. The caretaker trying to heal everyone else while quietly craving to be healed yourself. And yet, you rarely let anyone take care of you. The idea of depending on someone feels uncomfortable. Love feels safer when you're the one giving it, not receiving it, because to receive means to trust. And trust was never something you could afford to give easily. You might also notice that joy feels complicated. You laugh, but part of you feels guilty for it. You celebrate small things, but struggle to fully feel them. It's as if some part of you is waiting for it all to be taken away again. That's the residue of early responsibility, when happiness was always temporary and safety was something you had to earn. And then there's the loneliness, not the kind you fix with company or conversation. It's deeper, the loneliness of someone who's always been emotionally self-sufficient. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like you're holding something they'll never understand. Because how do you explain that you became an adult in a child's body? That your mind learned to manage, to protect, to predict before it ever learned to just exist? Some nights you feel it more strongly. That ache for a version of yourself that never got to be. The little kid who didn't have to be strong, who could have cried without shame, who could have made mistakes without fear of consequence. That child still lives inside you, waiting, hoping that one day you'll let them come out again. But the truth is, Even if you've grown and healed and learned how to function, some part of that early loss always lingers. It shows up in your relationships, your perfectionism, your anxiety, your constant drive to be enough. You're not chasing success or validation. You're chasing safety. You're chasing the feeling of finally being able to exhale. When you grow up too fast, you don't just lose your childhood. You lose the freedom to be imperfect. Every mistake feels dangerous. Every failure feels personal. Every time you let someone down, it echoes through all those years of being the one who had to hold it together. And that's the most invisible part of it. People see your strength, but not the cost of it. They see your composure, but not the fatigue. They admire your independence, not realizing it was born from necessity, not choice. Growing up too fast teaches you how to function, but not how to feel safe while doing it. You become an expert at surviving, but a beginner at living. And when you finally enter adulthood, you notice that something's missing. A softness, a spontaneity, a sense of wonder. You can't always name it, but you feel it when others laugh easily or trust effortlessly. You feel it when people seem carefree in ways that make no sense to you, because your brain never learned that safety doesn't always have to be earned. You start to realize that what you called maturity was actually hypervigilance. What you thought was strength was suppression. And what everyone praised as independence was really isolation disguised as competence. But even then, you don't blame anyone. You understand too much. You see why people acted the way they did. You empathize with everyone, maybe too much, because that's what growing up too fast does. It teaches you compassion, but it also teaches you silence. You see everyone's pain except your own, and yet, you can't unsee the truth forever. At some point, you start to feel that pull. The need to reconnect with what was lost, the need to feel joy without guilt, to rest without fear, to be loved without earning it. That's when the real journey begins. Not toward becoming something new, but toward remembering what you were before you had to grow up so soon. Because the child you used to be is still waiting. And they don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to come back. To understand the psychology of a child who grew up too fast, we have to start with one fundamental truth. No child becomes mature early by choice. It's not ambition that makes a child act like an adult. It's adaptation. It's what the human mind does when love becomes unpredictable or safety becomes conditional. Psychologically, this is often called parentification. When a child takes on emotional or practical responsibilities that belong to adults, but labels only explain the surface. Underneath, what's really happening is the brain learning one message too early. If I don't take care of everything, everything will fall apart. When that belief takes root, it becomes the architecture of a child's inner world. The nervous system begins to operate in constant alert. The mind becomes preoccupied with predicting moods, preventing conflict, and earning affection through performance. Even small children can sense tension they don't understand, and their instinct is to fix it. A healthy childhood is built on trust. Trust that adults can manage problems. Trust that the world won't collapse without your control. But when that trust breaks, the child's brain compensates by building control mechanisms. They start believing that love must be maintained through effort, and that peace only exists when they're good enough. That's how hyper-responsibility begins. You might see it in the child who never complains, who helps around the house without being asked, who comforts adults when they should be comforted. On the outside, it looks like maturity, but inside, it's fear. Fear that if they stop holding things together, they'll lose the little stability they have left. Neuroscience shows that chronic stress during early years changes how the brain develops. The amygdala, the part responsible for detecting threats, becomes overactive. The prefrontal cortex, which regulates emotion, adapts to constant vigilance. Over time, even in safe environments, that heightened alertness remains. The body doesn't forget what it had to do to survive. And this is why, as adults, these individuals often struggle with anxiety, perfectionism, or people-pleasing. Their nervous systems are trained to believe that calm is temporary, that comfort is earned, not given. They live with an invisible tension, always anticipating what might go wrong, always trying to stay one step ahead of chaos. Another layer to this psychology is the confusion between worth and usefulness. When a child's care, empathy, or obedience is rewarded. The brain pairs love with service. The message becomes, I'm valuable when I'm helping. I'm lovable when I'm useful. This belief doesn't fade with age. It matures into adult behavior. You see it in the friend who always listens but never opens up, the employee who overworks to avoid disappointing others, the partner who sacrifices their needs to maintain harmony. Underneath it all is the same emotional blueprint. If I stop being useful, I might stop being loved. There's also something deeply psychological about how these children handle emotion. When feelings were never safe to express, maybe because no one listened or emotions led to conflict, they learned to suppress rather than release. Anger turns into guilt. Sadness becomes numbness. Even happiness feels risky because it draws attention, so they flatten their emotions to stay invisible. This is called emotional inhibition, and it becomes a habit that shapes adult life. People who grew up too fast often describe feeling detached from their own feelings. They can describe emotions but rarely feel them fully. They intellectualize pain instead of experiencing it, because feeling it might open doors they spent years learning to keep shut. And then there's attachment. When childhood love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, the child's brain learned to adapt through what psychologists call anxious attachment. That means constantly scanning for signs of withdrawal, rejection, or disappointment. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. The brain remembers instability and mistakes it for normality. That's why as adults, they often oscillate between closeness and distance. They crave connection but fear dependency. They want to trust but anticipate betrayal. It's a push-pull dynamic that feels confusing, but it's really just a reenactment of old survival patterns. Every adult who grew up too fast carries two selves inside, the mature protector and the forgotten child. The protector handles life, pays bills, manages emotions, solves crises. The child, though, remains stuck in time, still waiting to feel safe enough to play. Most of the inner conflict in adulthood happens between these two parts. The protector says, "We have to stay strong," while the child whispers, "I just want to rest." And sometimes, the protector wins for too long. That's when burnout happens. Emotional exhaustion from constantly being the responsible one. The person starts to feel like life is something to manage, not experience. Even joy feels like another task. But here's the thing. Even though these behaviors were born from pain, they're also evidence of resilience. A child who grows up too fast is a child who found a way to survive when they shouldn't have had to. Their empathy, their maturity, their awareness. These are incredible strengths. The problem isn't that they developed them. The problem is that they never learned how to turn them off. Every adult who grew up too fast carries two selves inside, the protector and the forgotten child. The protector wears the armor, calm under pressure, efficient in chaos, always taking charge. They learned early that someone had to be responsible, and if no one else would do it, they would. The protector learned to anticipate everyone's needs, to fix problems before they broke, to stay composed while their world spun out of control. But deep inside, beneath all that strength, there's another self, the child who never got to be one. That child is quiet now, watching from behind tired eyes. They're the one who wanted to laugh louder, play longer, and cry without being told to stop. They're the one who still hopes that one day someone will say, "It's okay now, you don't have to take care of everything." They never really disappeared. They just learned to hide behind maturity. Most of the inner conflict in adulthood happens between these two parts. The protector says, "We can't fall apart. We have to stay strong." The child whispers, "I'm so tired. I just want to rest." And because life keeps demanding more, the protector often wins. For years, even decades. Until the armor becomes too heavy. Until the smile starts to crack. That's when burnout appears. Not as weakness, but as the body's final attempt to get our attention. The exhaustion isn't just physical. It's emotional depletion from constantly being the one who holds it all together. When someone grows up too fast, they often confuse survival with worthiness. They believe their value comes from being capable, responsible, calm. They learn that love must be earned by being useful, by fixing, helping, achieving. And so, even in adulthood, they keep overgiving, overthinking, overperforming. They don't know how to simply be. Even joy begins to feel like a task, another thing to check off the list, another moment to manage instead of experience. But here's the truth. Their maturity is not a flaw. It's proof of incredible resilience. A child who grows up too fast is a child who adapted when life demanded more than they could give. They built strength out of necessity, empathy out of pain, and awareness out of survival. Their hypervigilance is sensitivity turned into wisdom. Their emotional depth is what makes them extraordinary friends, partners, artists, and healers. The problem isn't that they developed these traits. The problem is that they never learned how, or when, to put them down. They never got to learn what it feels like to be carefree, to fail safely, to rest without guilt. Healing, for them, isn't about becoming less responsible. It's about allowing softness to exist beside strength. It's about letting the protector loosen their grip so the child can finally breathe. It's about realizing that maturity doesn't have to mean silence, control, or exhaustion. True maturity is balance, the ability to carry both discipline and play, independence and connection, logic and vulnerability. There comes a moment when the adult finally meets the child within and says, "You did amazing. You kept us alive, but it's okay now. You can rest." And in that moment, something shifts. The protector doesn't vanish. They simply step aside. The child begins to laugh again, slowly, cautiously, as if remembering how. The heart, once armored, begins to feel safe in its softness again. Because the truth is, we don't outgrow our inner child. We either reconnect with them or spend our lives trying to fill the emptiness they left behind. When the protector and the child learn to coexist, something beautiful happens. Responsibility no longer feels like a burden. Rest no longer feels like laziness. Life stops being something to survive and starts being something to experience. This is called emotional inhibition, the quiet, invisible armor built out of necessity. It begins as a survival instinct and hardens into a lifelong habit. When a child grows up in an environment where emotions were unsafe, where crying was met with dismissal or vulnerability was ignored, or anger was punished, they learn an unspoken rule. Feeling deeply is dangerous. So they adapt. They grow skilled at suppressing, translating, rationalizing, anything but truly feeling. They learn to describe their sadness with perfect clarity, but never let it tremble in their voice. They can talk about fear as if it belongs to someone else. They become fluent in emotional language but disconnected from emotional experience. And that's the cruel paradox. They seem emotionally mature but are emotionally starved. They can comfort others with wisdom, yet struggle to comfort themselves. They can understand pain intellectually, yet cannot allow themselves to break open and grieve. Because somewhere deep inside, they still believe that if they ever truly felt the weight of it all, they might never recover. So they keep everything contained, neatly folded inside the mind, labeled and categorized, but never lived through. Their composure becomes a form of control. Their calmness becomes a disguise for fear, and society praises them for it, calls them strong, independent, wise beyond their years. No one realizes that what looks like strength is often just the result of emotional self-abandonment. And then there's attachment, the invisible blueprint that decides how we love, fear, and connect. When childhood love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes absent, the child's nervous system learned to live in uncertainty. One day, affection came easily. The next day, it vanished without explanation. The child couldn't make sense of it, so they began to monitor every subtle cue. A sigh, a tone, a delay in response. Their young mind concluded, if I can just behave the right way, maybe I can keep love from disappearing. That vigilance becomes anxious attachment. Not paranoia, pattern recognition. The body remembers the rhythm of inconsistency, the ache of almost being loved, and it mistakes that chaos for normality. So as adults, they enter relationships carrying that same tension in their chest. They crave connection with an intensity that can feel overwhelming. They want to trust, to surrender, to rest in closeness. But closeness feels unpredictable, dangerous, fragile. They oscillate between reaching out and pulling back, between wanting to be seen and fearing what will happen if they are. They might overanalyze texts, replay conversations, or test people's affection, not because they're manipulative, but because their nervous system doesn't know the difference between love and uncertainty. The very thing they long for, safety, feels foreign, almost boring. Peace feels suspicious. Stability feels temporary. And so, without realizing it, they recreate the same emotional rhythm they grew up with. Love that feels conditional, security that feels earned, trust that feels fragile. It's not self-sabotage. It's self-protection disguised as control. This push-pull dynamic, craving intimacy but fearing dependency, can make adulthood feel like an emotional tug-of-war. They long to be held, but when someone gets too close, they retreat behind sarcasm, distance, or silence. They confuse independence with safety, self-sufficiency with worth. And yet, underneath all the defenses, there's still a tender truth. They don't actually want to be distant. They just want to feel safe enough not to be. Healing begins the moment they stop judging themselves for these patterns and start seeing them for what they are: adaptations. Not character flaws, not emotional failures, but creative survival strategies born from chaos. The task of adulthood, then, is not to fix the self, but to retrain the nervous system to believe that safety exists now, that love doesn't have to be earned, that presence can last, that stillness doesn't always precede pain. It means learning to feel again, not all at once, but slowly. To sit with discomfort instead of analyzing it. To let tears fall without needing to explain why. To allow the heart to soften after years of bracing for impact. And in that gradual unlearning, something miraculous happens. The protector stops guarding the door, and the child steps forward, trembling, curious, alive. For the first time, they don't just understand love. They feel it.